to the cloud. Okay, good morning, everybody, and we'll get started here. Nice to see everybody. Thanks for coming. And again, it's going to be recorded and, of course, uploaded to YouTube if for whatever reason you have to leave or want to hear it again or whatever. So I'm, for one thing, I'm in a title. It's not for personal reasons of vanity on YouTube or anything, but I'm probably going to come up with sort of a little bit of a flashy title for the name of this class originally. Like I said, what's funny is things always change with karma. So, initially I just wanted to do Lama Chopa practice with people, and then starting to teach a tiny bit. Now, of course, I feel, like I said, that I'm teaching a little bit more, and we're having, discussion, question and answer, going through the material, this stuff a little deeper. And so it's ending up becoming sort of like an introduction to Buddhism class and topics on three principal paths and stuff. So, which I like, it's great. It's kind of morphing into that. So it's not just Lama Chopa anymore. So I'll have to come up with sort of a nicer title. So what we did is like I said, I sort of envisioned when we first started this past year that we would go through in a very sort of brief way, just kind of like in points or tenets, so to speak, a lot of the material covered in the Asian Classics Institute original sort of set of courses there that Geshe Michael shot in the mid-1990s. And of course, it'd be supplemented by a lot of other material from all my notes in years spent studying with Zasep Rinpoche, as well as other books by other lamas and so forth, and LamRim Chenmo, blah, blah, blah. So it's all put in, but I'm still following, I guess, sort of the skeletal structure, so to speak, of Asian Classics Institute. So the first course being on three principal paths. The second course we're going to start now is looking at probably about 7 classes, so 7 Saturdays. It's titled Perfection of Wisdom. So what they've done with the 5, Asian Classics Institute, he sort of taught topics according to what they call the 5 great teachers, or the 5 great topics or fields of knowledge that you would be knowing, getting your Geshe degree in the Gelugpa tradition back in the old days, so to speak. So, perfection of wisdom. One would be on, let's say, ethics. I actually, to be honest, I'm so jet lagged, I can't remember what the 5 are, but you can look that up. It's kind of like in the old days in Greek philosophy, you study physics, nature, metaphysics, so questions of being, ethics, for instance, politics, rhetoric, art, this kind of thing. It's the same kind of principle that what we're doing here. We're going to be looking, at emptiness. We're going to be looking at ethics. We're going to be looking at valid cognition, or how do you know things? How do you know that you know things properly? And that's, of course, tied to knowing emptiness. So those, the courses are structured around this. So this is from the second course that they sort of group it under Perfection of Wisdom. So it's a course on refuge, what it means to take refuge. So, but it's also going to be, again, not just refuge, but it's going to be questions of emptiness, and then what is nirvana, for instance, and even some issues you could say sort of what is BuddhaNature. So that's kind of like the overall picture for the next 6, 7 classes that we'll be doing. And today I just got to sort of put together what a class just on what refuge is. What does it really mean to take refuge as a Buddhist? We're always saying, I take refuge, I take refuge. What do you really mean when you say that? Okay, so let's get started. And we'll start with the Heart Sutra. Way of dispelling obstacles, and always sort of to not just set our intention, but I guess you could say set our view, that ultimately everything we're doing here is from the standpoint of emptiness. Okay. Homage to Perfection of Wisdom, the Blessed Mother. Thus I've heard at one time the Blessed One was dwelling in Rajgir, when mass vultures mount together a great assembly of monks and a great assembly of bodhisattvas. That time the Blessed One was absorbed in the concentration of countless aspects of phenomena called profound illumination. That time also Spirit of Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the great being, is looking perfectly at the practice of the profound perfection of wisdom, looking perfectly at the 5 aggregates being empty of inherent existence. Then through the power of Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to Spirit of Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the great being, how should a son of the lineage train who wishes to engage in the practice of the profound perfection of wisdom? Thus he spoke, and Spirit of Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the great being, replied to Venerable Shariputra as follows. Shariputra, whatever son or daughter of the lineage wishes to engage in the practice of profound perfection of wisdom should look perfectly like this. Subsequently, looking perfectly and correctly also at the 5 aggregates being empty of inherent existence. Form is empty, emptiness is form. Emptiness is none other than form, and form is also none other than emptiness. Likewise, feeling, discrimination, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Should I put you like this? All phenomena are in emptiness, having no characteristics. They're not produced and do not cease. They have no defilement, no separation from defilement. They have no decrease, no increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no compositional factors, no consciousness. There is no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mentality, no form, no sound, no smell, no taste, no tactile object, no phenomena. There is no I element and so forth up to no mentality element, and also up to no element of mental consciousness. There is no ignorance and so no exhaustion of ignorance, and so forth up to no aging and death, and no exhaustion of aging and death. Likewise, there's no suffering, origin, cessation, or path, and no exalted awareness, no attainment, also no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, because there's no attainment, bodhisattvas rely on and abide in the perfection of wisdom. The minds have no obstructions and no fear. Passing utterly beyond perversity, they attain the final nirvana. Also, all the Buddhas reside perfectly in the three times, having relied upon the perfection of wisdom, became manifest, complete Buddhas in the state of unsurpassed, perfect, complete enlightenment. Therefore, the mantra of perfection of wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge, the unsurpassed mantra, the equal to the unequal mantra, the mantra that thoroughly pacifies all suffering, since it's not false, should be known as the truth. The mantra of perfection of wisdom is proclaimed, Tayatam Gata Gata Paragata Parsam Gati Bodhi Soha. Shariputra Bodhisattva, great beings should train the profound perfection of wisdom like this. Then the Blessed One arose from that concentration, said to Spirit Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the great being that had spoken well. Good, O son of Lincoln, it's like that. Since it's like that, just as you have revealed in that way, the profound perfection of wisdom should be practiced, and the Tathagatas will also rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, the Venerable Shariputra, Spirit Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the great being, and the entire circle of disciples, as well as worldly beings, gods, humans, demigods, and spirits, were delighted and highly praised what had been spoken by the Blessed One. Okay, let's sort of get settled in here for our meditation. So we can start again by doing our 9-point breathing. So 3 times, 3 sets on our own. So of course, this being 3 sets of 3 breaths. So first set when you're exhaling through your right nostril, visualizing that you're getting rid of all sort of desirous attachment, sort of stuck energy. Next, 3 out of your left nostril, anger, reactivity, frustration, resentment, all that. And then 3 deep breaths through both nostrils and holding the last inhalation at our navel, putting our mind there, mixing our prana, our breath and our mind together, just a little bit below our belly button. And when becomes uncomfortable, a little bit tension, then you just exhale and release. Okay, so 3 times on our own time here. Okay. So just finishing up here. We're going to do the visualization for Lama Chopa again today, the merit field. So the big complicated one, looking at this, go a little closer here, the one you probably see with all the beautiful lineage grooves and so forth. So anyway, this is the profound path on this side here, Manjushri and all the wisdom gurus, and then Maitreya and all the vast path gurus, compassion gurus on that side. Yeah, where's every depiction is a little different usually. I don't, oh, here they are here. There's they put them up here. Sometimes they put them down here. There's Manjushri and this. And then here, when we visualize up top, we have the different streams of gurus. So Goya Samaja, Haruka, Vajradhara, that 16 heart drop of the Kadampas, it's Tisha at the top, and then Yamantaka, and then all the Kala chakras right here, and all the different highest yoga tantra deities. And then these are the 4 classes of tantra here. There's Dakinis, universal, the 1,000 universal Buddhas, Arhats, and so forth, and then little protector beings, Buddhas along the bottom here. So that's what we're going to visualize right now, like we have in the past. So I just wanted to show you that. And to be honest, I was forgetting myself where everything was in that. We haven't done this for a little bit, so I wanted to refresh my memory. Okay, so let's just take a moment to put ourselves in a wide open space here. Ground like lapis. Beautiful blue sky like a dome above us. And we're just going to put ourselves in our meditation state here to receive blessings and energy to be able to meditate in sort of inspiration to learn the Dharma from all the holy beings and our gurus and light beings here. And again, just like they say in most shamanic traditions throughout the world, it's sort of a circle of giving, of sort of reciprocity, where we're offering to the spirit world here and then getting blessings or energy and guidance back. Same thing here. So all sentient beings are surrounding us, meditating with us. So our mother on our left, father on our right, people we love the most is support behind us, people we like the least or have issues with, karmic debts, karmic problems, and so forth in front of us as objects of our prayers and healing and compassion. And then sentient beings from all the different realms of cyclic existence around us. So humans from all around the world, different places and backgrounds, animals, all the different sort of life forms, different ecosystems here. Celestial beings, different gods and demigods, countless spirit beings in the spirit world, from fairies up to dragons and wizards and warlocks and all these kinds of things. And then countless beings in lower states of rebirth, hell beings, hungry ghost beings, and so forth. All of us together like a big family, meditating. Now in the sky above us and in front of us here, made out of pure light or energy, let's visualize. So it's just huge. Be like if we're standing in front of a big skyscraper or tower, or like the Eiffel Tower or something. We're sort of at the bottom here. We can just sort of see into the sky. It's just huge. At the same time, it's made out of pure light or energy. So it's like a wonderful manifestation, almost like a reflection in a mirror or some big kind of laser light show, so forth. So out of Lake Manasrovar is a beautiful tree, like a world tree. We can think of it sort of beautiful oak tree or ash or maple tree, banyan tree. And in it, just like Robert Thurman calls it, like a big Christmas tree, almost like ornaments in the Christmas tree, we're going to visualize all the holy beings here. So the central one, like a big harvest moon. The other ones are a little smaller around it, kind of like stars or constellations, is the central figure for Lama Chopa, sort of our offering to the spiritual guide, sort of our main focus, our teacher of this life, Loseng Tubei Dorje Chan. So Our teacher of this life is taking the form of founder of our lineage, Gelugpa tradition in the 1400s, Tsongkhapa, wearing the 3 robes of a monk, wonderful Tibetan saint, one of the greatest saints in the history of Buddhism. And he is wearing a yellow pandit's cap in lotus position, and he has a begging bowl in his left hand and his lap with medicinal nectar, and right hand in the mudra of teaching. So index fingers touching the thumb, holding a white lotus on the right shoulder. Now, at his heart, we're going a little deeper here, is Buddha Shakyamuni, the Buddha. So if we just sort of say Tsongkhapa represents sort of ethics, or more the Hinayana path of mind transformation, sort of controlling your mind, disciplining your mind. At its heart represents the Mahayana intention for all things, and Mahayana Buddhism, that being bodhicitta. So Buddha Shakyamuni's, we usually visualize him with a golden energy body, 3 robes of a monk, holding begging bowl and this one nectar in his left hand, and right hand touching the earth with the subduing mudra. And then finally, at his heart, Buddha's heart, is Buddha's higher angelic form, the Sambhogakaya form, Conquer Vajradhara and Vajradhatushvari. And they have beautiful blue sapphire bodies with crowns and jewelry and so forth and silks. And sexual embrace, and so Vajradhara with her arms crossed around her back, has a dorje in his right hand, bell in his left, and she has a skull cup with medicinal nectar in left hand and chopper knife in her right, and both are wearing crowns and so forth. Very, very beautiful, representing the tantric path, in particular tantric path of highest yoga tantra. So on our left, or Tsongkhapa's right, let's visualize the Buddha of loving kindness, Maitreya, and all the gurus, men and women, last 2,500 years that have taught vast path of compassion, bodhicitta, and even mind-only teachings. So like Arya Sangha, Vasubandhu, and so forth. All these teachers. And Maitreya's got a golden energy body holding 2 in the Eternal Wheel Dharma Mudra, 2 white lotuses. He's in what they call bodhisattva form. So in lotus position, and he has a crown. It's very, very beautiful. And on our right or left side of Tsongkhapa in the tree is Manjushri, and he's in the same bodhisattva form as Maitreya, and is wearing a crown with gold, sort of golden body, holding 2 white lotuses in the Eternal Wheel Dharma Mudra. And he's surrounded by all men and women who have taught the profound path teachings of Buddhism, teachings on emptiness, wisdom, realizing emptiness, like Arya and Nagarjuna and so forth. Just like we said, like the 5 streams coming down, kind of like 5 totem poles coming down into Tsongkhapa here, top, representing the tantric lineages, coming right down from Buddha's time, right to us or our teacher, for instance, Zasep Rinpoche, or lamas that you have in your life, kind of like the interface between you and Buddha, the highest level. So we can think just heading left to right here in front of us, Goya Samaja, Buddha of power, Ruka, Buddha of compassion, then Vajradhara, and then below him all little Manjushris representing the Tantric Mahamudra path of the ear whispered lineage of Tsongkhapa. They call that, it's Kadam emanation scripture teachings. And then Atisha represented all sort of gurus coming down from him, representing all the tantric lineages of the old Kadampa school in the 11th century. And finally, Buddha of wisdom, Yamantaka. Now, in front of Tsongkhapa here, we can visualize our teachers of this life, all of our gurus that have taught us correct spiritual paths and so forth, 4 classes of tantric deities, and then all the other holy beings and light beings. So 1,000 Buddhas of this universe, this aeon, So 1,000 universal Buddhas, bikinis in 24 places, 16 arhats, so forth. All the Dharmapalas and protector Buddhas. So again, it's like the Rockefeller Christmas tree at Christmas time in New York City, and just huge, amazing tree with all these little Buddhas in it, glowing different colors, setting up different energies and so forth. I feel like this is the interface between us and the spirit world, in particular, the whole lineage of Buddhism, from Buddha Shakyamuni all the way to our teachers and then all the way into us. Okay, so we can take refuge here. I and all sentient beings until we achieve enlightenment, go for refuge to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. I and all sentient beings until we achieve enlightenment, go for refuge to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. I and all sentient beings till we achieve enlightenment, go for refuge to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Setting our bodhicitta intention here. Through the virtues I collect by giving perfections, may I become a Buddha for the benefit of all. Through the virtues I collect by giving another perfections, may I become a Buddha for the benefit of all. Through the virtues I collect by giving another perfections, may I become a Buddha for the benefit of all. Then we can think white lights and nectars are coming down, just purifying us and all sentient beings around us, flushing out our negativities and obstacles, obscurations, obstructions, and so forth. And making us all sort of crystal clear and pure. Now the lights and energies turn color to a golden color. So it's almost like beer on the tap, where you pull the thing down and it's like a waterfalls coming down. I guess almost like a shower of sort of gold, sort of first being sort of white, sort of milky, sort of moonlight kind of nectar and light coming down. And then it comes sort of bright, sort of almost like solar energy coming down. So golden energy, merit energy, virtue energy. This is the empowerment energy. So first we're cleaned out and pure. Now we're sort of brought up a level, spiritual energy. Again, four measurables. May everyone be happy. May everyone be free from misery. May no one ever be separated from their happiness. May everyone have equanimity, free from hatred and attachment. Okay, I'm just going to read just the invocation for Lama Chopa here, because I think it's really, really beautiful, just before we do the 7 limb practice here. In the vast heavens of indivisible voidness and bliss, amidst billowing clouds of Samantabhadra's offerings, at the crest of a wish-granting tree, embellished with leaves, flowers, and fruit, is a lion throne ablaze with precious gems. Upon cushions of lotus, sun, and full moon sits my kind root guru, who is kind in all 3 ways, in essence all Buddhas, an aspect saffron-robed monk, with 1 face, 2 arms, and a radiant white smile. Your right hand is in the gesture of expounding the Dharma, and your left hand is in the meditative pose, cradles a begging bowl filled with nectar. You are draped with the 3 robes of lustrous saffron. Your head is graced by Panit's golden colors hat. In your heart, all-pervading Lord Vajradhara, with a body blue in color, with 1 face and 2 arms, holding a Vajra and bow and embracing Vajradhatu Ishvari. They delight in the play of simultaneous voidness and bliss, and are adorned with jeweled ornaments of many designs, and clothed in garments of heavenly silks. Radiant with thousands of light rays, you are emblazoned with the major and minor marks of a Buddha, and sit in the Vajra position, haloed by 5-colored rainbow. Totally pure, your skandhas are the 5 Buddhas gone to bliss. Your 4 elements are the 4 motherly consorts. The bliss of your senses, energy channels, sinews, and joints are in reality all bodhisattvas. The hairs of your pores are the 21,000 arhats. Your limbs are the wrathful protectors, light rays, direction guardians, lords of wealth, and their attendants, while all worldly gods are but cushions for your feet. Surrounding you in their respective orders, an encircling sea of actual and lineage gurus, yidams, wholesome mandala deities, Buddhas, bodhisattvas, viras, dakinis, and protectors of the teachings. 3 doors of each are marked by the 3 Vajras, and from their syllables of whom light rays go out in hook light, draw forth from their natural bows the wisdom beings so they become inseparably set. You who are the source of goodness, bliss, and perfection, O root and lineage gurus, idams, and 3 jewels of refuge, Viras, Dakinis, Dharmapalas, and protectors, with entourage of the 3 times of the power of compassion, come forth and abide steadfast. Though all things are totally free of inherent coming and going, still you arise from your virtuous conduct of wisdom and love and compassion, in whatsoever form suit the temperament of your varied disciples. O holy refuge protectors, please come forth with your entourage. Om Guru Buddha Bodhisattva Dharmapala Sapariwara Ehai Hi Sa Hum Bam Ho. The wisdom and symbolic meanings become non-dual. So at this point, we can just feel that all the Buddhas sort of invoke from all the different directions, 10 directions, and they absorb into the tree. And now we're ready to sort of offer our practice to our gurus and to the Buddhas. So just from our heart quickly here, we can do the 7 limb practice, making our practice sort of officially Buddhist. So prostrations, we can offer just in our mind, just sort of visualize that we and all sentient beings are making prostrations to the refuge tree, singing the praises, mantras, and dharanis, and having sort of mental signs of devotion and respect and love. Making offerings from our hearts. So again, it's at least in Vancouver, so up here in Nelson it's starting to turn too, but Vancouver is cherry blossom time, my favorite time of year. I've had many past lives in Japan, and so I'm all kind of just, it's almost like a nostalgia to see all the wonderful cherry blossoms all the time. I just love it so much. And so I always visualize at this point, all my old neighborhood in Kitsilano, all the beautiful cherry blossom trees, white ones, you know, the little ones that are more like flowers, the puffy ones like pom-poms and so forth, in all directions for the merit field here. So confession and rejoicing, kind of like you're bringing 2 children of your sort of inner child ahead to the merit field here, sort of the bad one and the good one, the misbehaved one that has their issues that needs to sort of be healed and to grow up and to be well behaved, our sort of little bad self that's always a work in progress, sort of our character flaws and so forth. And the good one, the one that we're sort of proud of, that's trying their very, very best and they're displaying a great amount of virtue and so forth. And these are 2 sides of us. So again, declaring or owning our sort of failed human side and rejoicing in our good, sort of the positive Buddha nature that's sort of coming out, the angel within us that's sort of manifesting as we progress on the path. And again, holding in our hearts here, wonderful lion throne, sending that up, and an 8-spoke golden Dharma chakra, and that just requesting our gurus and the Buddhas always to stay with us, to guide us, and always to teach us Dharma. And again, from our root guru perspective, practical Dharma, not just Dharma in books like theory and philosophy and metaphysics and all this stuff, which is completely divorced from your personal life, but quite the opposite, just from our teachers. Personal advice, completely relevant to our personal life and our personal karma in this incarnation, leading us along the path to realizing emptiness. And dedicating all of our good actions, all of our good energy for the welfare and the healing and enlightenment of all beings. Okay, just doing a mandala offering here. The ground sprinkled with perfume, spread with flowers. Great mountain forelands, sun and moon seen as a Buddha land, and offered thus be all beings enjoy such pure lands. I offer without any sense of loss the objects that give rise to my attachment, hatred, and confusion, my friends, enemies, strangers, their bodies and enjoyments. Please bless me to be released from the 3 poisonous minds. And then secret mandala, offer you refuge protector, and precious root guru who are inseparable for our yidam, offer you the great mountain, 4 lands, sun and moon, precious substances, which have arisen from my aggregate sources as elements, as aspects of spontaneous born exalted wisdom of bliss and emptiness. So holding at our heart, wonderful purified universe. An offering up to the refuge tree here. Om Edam Guru Ratna Mandala Kamyatiyami. So finally, just the supplications for Lama Chopa, just requesting our Ruka and all holy beings to dissolve into us. Let's recite here. We make our request to you, holders of the elders Vinaya, O Master, second Buddhist clad in saffron. You brim with the treasury of jewels of much hearing and are a source of excellence and immense ocean moral discipline. We make our request to you, Mahayana Gurus, lords of the Dharma, representing the victorious ones without exception. You possess the 10 qualities who render you suitable guides along the path of those who have gone to bliss. We make our request to you, foremost holders of the Vajra. You are skilled in explaining and composing, are endowed with both sets of 10 qualities and a knowledge of Tantra and its rituals. You are honorable, without pretense of guile, patient, broad-minded, 3 doors well subdued. We make our request to you, compassionate refuge protectors, with the precision you impart good ways of those gone to bliss. To the unruly beings of this degenerate age who are difficult to curb and are not tamed by the countless Buddhas of the past. We make our request to you, compassionate refuge protectors. You enact the deeds of the victorious ones for the many beings who lack a protective refuge at this time when the sunlight teaching the sage are setting. We make our request to you, compassionate refuge protectors. Even a single hair from your pores is for us to feel to merit more highly praised than all the victorious Buddhas of the 3 times and 10 directions. We make our request to you, compassionate refuge protectors, from an intricate lattice and mirage-like skillful means, and plays from the 3 body wheels of those gone to bliss. You manifest in ordinary guise to lead all beings. We make our request to you, supreme gurus, the essence of 3 jewels of refuge. Your aggregates, elements, and sensory bases and limbs are in nature the fathers, mothers, and male and female bodhisattvas, and the wrathful protectors of the 5 Buddha families. We make our request to you, protectors of primordial unity, foremost holders of the Vajra, all pervading lords of hundreds of Buddha families, unfolding from the play of omniscient, pristine awareness. You're the quintessence of 10 million mandala cycles. We make our request to you, immaculate Samanta Bhadra, or in reality, ultimate bodhicitta, free of beginning or end, nature of all things, pervading everything in motion and at rest, inseparable from simultaneous bliss and play without obstruction. You are our gurus, you are yidams, you are dakinis and dharma protectors. From this moment until our enlightenment, we need seek no refuge other than you. In this life, the bardo and all future lives, hold us with your hook of compassion, free us from samsara nirvana's fears, grant all attainments, be our unfailing friend, and guard us from all interferences. So at this point, again, we can just visualize having made requests to all of our gurus and the Buddhas in the refuge tree here. Golden lights and nectars are coming down into us and all sentient beings around us. So we can just feel that we're just all glowing, beautiful golden energy. So again, just feel just like it's a cloudy day, the clouds open up, you get the sun coming through or sunbeams through a window. So luminous and warm. And just all the wisdom, the compassion, power of the Buddhas going directly into us. Now, reciprocity here, we make offerings, open our heart, and receive blessings from them. It's sort of a circle of giving. This allows us to have a more of an open heart, make greater offerings to the holy beings and to all sentient beings. And then we receive blessing energy back. So the more you do this, actually, the more you'll start to feel this energy coming into your body. It's kind of an abstraction at first, and then you'll more and more, just like the more you visualize, of course, you're manifesting reality. So you'll start to actually feel the blessings. And blessings are always being given, but there's our delusions are like a curtain or veil in front of it. So the more this starts to get purified, the more you'll start to feel this, the energy is going to start to come through. Okay, for the merit field here, the refuge tree, just visualize that it starts to melt as we're ready to absorb it into our hearts. So the lake and trees start to melt in the golden light, dissolving into the holy beings. In front of Tsongkhapa, all those rows of all the holy beings and light beings sort of melt inward into the root teacher of our light. And our root teacher, root guru, becomes a little ball of golden energy and dissolves into Tsongkhapa. On either side here, left and right, the vast path and profound path gurus melt into Maitreya and Manjushri. Respectively, they become golden balls of light that melt into Tsongkhapa. And above, the 5 lineages there start to melt downward. So we can just feel Goya Samaja, Haruka, Vajradhara, Atisha, and Yamantaka start to sort of dissolve inward. So now we just have the 3 figures in the sky here, like a beautiful sun. Tsongkhapa now melts into golden light, into his heart, into the Buddha. Buddha melts into light, into his heart, into the divine couple, Conqueror Vajradhara and Vajradhatushvari. So now it's just them, and you can just feel that they're a condensation of all these, an amplification of all these holy beings. They've all sort of dissolved into them. They're kind of like the alpha and omega, so to speak, of all the different light beings here. All the wisdom, power, and compassion. So they shrink and get quite small, at the size of a sunflower seed. Drift down to the top of our head here, turn around so they're facing the same direction as us. And gently, made out of blue energy here, enter our crown chakra, our central channel in front of our spine, and start to descend right till they reach our heart. And when they reach our heart, just feel that they melt directly into our root mind and dissolve into our clear light mind. Just feel that just one, their mind, their Buddha nature goes directly in our Buddha nature, their mind into ours. You can feel great, great bliss and joy, great spaciousness and unity, to sort of a feeling of totality with all there is. And we can just sit with that. Okay, coming out of meditation here. Okay. Pardon me. Okay, just going through notes here. Sort of our first class here is on what is refuge? What is Buddhist refuge? What really makes you a Buddhist? So of course, if you tell everybody you're a Buddhist, someone, whatever, you're at a dinner party or whatever, you meet people on the plane and it's just, what are you, religion are you? Oh, I'm Buddhist. And okay, well, what does that mean? What does it mean? And it's very funny. I always remember this is how most people say it. This one maintenance guy at work, right? We were just talking about stuff. A couple of guys, and he said, "Oh, you're wearing this. What is that? Bracelet." This is in the 1990s. I said, "Oh, it's a rosary. I'm a Buddhist." "Oh, the Buddha. I've heard about him." And some young guy says, "What does he preach? What does the Buddha preach?" And it's like, well, it's kind of like not like that, but so I tried to sort of explain to him what it means, to be Buddhist. And of course, it means to take refuge. And that's sort of a harder concept to get to people. Most people with religion is just what you believe in. And of course, refuge is a little bit different. So what do we mean by this? So, okay. So what we've been basically, if we're tying the sense of what it means to go to refuge to the title of this class, which is Perfection of Wisdom, what are you really taking refuge in, and what is the perfection of wisdom? So, what I remember Robert Thurman saying once, he says, what makes Buddhism different than all other religions or these wisdom traditions is that it all centers around a perception of emptiness. That a lot of other spiritual teachers taught love or forgiveness or compassion or even certain kinds of wisdom, but only the Buddha taught emptiness. That's what makes Buddhism sort of a unique religion that way. So that's kind of if you have to say what's Buddhism about more than anything, it's about emptiness. It's not just about love and compassion. Of course, it's all sort of tied in. And that emptiness isn't just a question of believing it, but of course, what we want is to have a direct experience of that's the sort of transformative or alchemical quality to the religion. That's sort of what you want to do. That's the whole process of following Buddhism as sort of a life path or religion. And Buddhism, of course, what we're saying is that it's sort of a process of education that we start, first of all, with intellectual or a conceptual or what they call inferential perception of emptiness or understanding of emptiness. And the more we study, the more we practice, we will actually get a direct experience of that. So perfection of wisdom in this case means going beyond. Even when we do the Prajna Paramita, perfection of wisdom mantra is Om Gata Gata Paragata Parasamgati Bodhisoha. That means going beyond as well. The mantra, like Rinpoche always says, it's even Trempa Rinpoche has a great commentary on that. It's like Om Gata Gata Paragata Parasamgati Bodhisoha is gone beyond, completely gone, or completely opened up, or completely exposed. Awake, Bodhi, awake, so be it. So mote it be, so to speak, so be it. So that's what the meaning of that mantra. So that's why it's kind of like this sort of ultimate or beautiful mantra, Prajna Paramita, wisdom gone beyond, gone beyond, completely gone, awake, open up, so be it. So gone beyond here is a perception of emptiness, in particular, it's perception of emptiness that we're having with the desire to help others, or seeing it under the influence of bodhicitta or love. Okay. So Geshe Michael was saying here, which is kind of interesting, what we call this mother of all Buddhas, like the perfection of wisdom here, this is sort of the state or what produces all Buddhas, like what, in other words, having a perception of emptiness with bodhicitta or under the influence of love is sort of the state that makes you enlightened. Once you're enlightened, you teach the same state to other beings, they become enlightened or Buddha. So it is kind of like the birth generics or the womb that is creating all the Buddhas, the process that is making all the Buddhas. And because emptiness has always already been here, it's kind of like, this kind of perpetual motion machine of Buddhas making more Buddhas, or Buddhas waking up to the fact that they've always already been Buddhas, right? That's kind of what makes this absolutely perfect and beautiful. I also have his note here. He says, when you perceive emptiness directly, it's like water poured into water. You can't perceive anything else at this time. So we will see this that when we're studying emptiness a little bit more directly, when you have a perception of emptiness, a direct perception, you're perceiving ultimate reality, or basically the fact that conventional things or everyday things have no self-existence. So the have no self-existence is the object or experience that we're meditating on. the sort of the I guess, you know, the object or sort of the nature of meditating. So it's an absence. We're meditating on absence. So what's interesting is that when we're meditating emptiness in that state, only emptiness appears to our mind. It's only the lack of inherent existence that's appearing to our mind. And because our mind, as we've defined it before, is just like a sheer openness, mind is clear and cognizing, mind is almost like clear open space. This clear empty space is meditating basically on the empty space of emptiness, or the fact that things don't have their own self nature or unrelated nature, so to speak. So basically this spacious experience is all that appears to the mind. That's what it means to sort of experience ultimate reality. Okay, so that's what we're trying to get. That's the perfection of wisdom. So when we're taking refuge, that's what we're taking refuge in, is just that, what I've been talking about as a Buddhist. So usually we say when you take refuge, oh, I take refuge in the Buddha, like the little golden Buddhas or Buddha statues. But really what you're taking refuge in is this state of emptiness, is prajnaparamita, is the perfection of wisdom. So question for all you guys. My dad always said he watched Buffalo Bill. What is it? He'd always ask the kids on TV, the peanut gallery, whatever. So my dad always said, okay, what's the peanut gallery think of this? You know, me and my sister, whatever. So what's the peanut gallery think of refuge? Do you remember refuge? You need two things for refuge to be present or refuge to work. Does anyone know what those are? Of course, I'm going to give you the answer, but just rhetorically, if anyone wants to answer here, what are the two things in refuge? It's actually two minds together that you need to make a mind of refuge.
Fear of samsara and faith.
100%, you got it. So remember, my first teacher, no, that's important. What's funny, I mean, I'm not saying, you know, whatever, we're talking about good bad Buddhists and bad Buddhists, but sometimes people don't know what that is. And you just think like, that's just like being a Christian, but don't know who Jesus is. And you're like, well, who's this guy Jesus? It's just like, dude, that's the whole point. Like, if you got that wrong, then you're not a Christian. So my first teacher, again, Kelsing Tarchin, because he studied with Lama Yeshe in the 1970s and early 80s, he said that Lama Yeshe was always so sweet, but he had this funny thing where if he felt, you know, his students or the class were getting too cocky or had big ego, he'd say, you know, because they're doing some tantric retreat, he's like, you guys think you're real hot shots, right? But he's like, okay, we're in this tantric retreat, but none of you have tantric realizations, right? None, you don't even know what you're doing. So you're not tantric practitioners. So number one, you're not real Tibetan Vajrayana practitioners. Number two, no one here has bodhicitta, right? You all think you're someone special. So technically you're not Mahayana practitioners either, but none of you have refuge. You're not even Buddhist. So what are you doing here in this retreat? Like, you sort of joke, right? So of course, whatever, he's just rattling everybody's cage. But basically, if you're a Buddhist, you have to have refuge, and you can test, like, is refuge present in my mind? You know, what is it? So again, just like Maureen was saying, the two things you have to look for is, of course, fear of suffering and faith. So those are, it's funny, those are two kind of trigger things nowadays. A lot of times when you mention that you have to have fear, people think, oh, this is good old fashioned hellfire, brimstone, judgmental religion. I left that when I left the church or whatever. I don't like this. I want nice Buddhas and rainbows. I don't want to be scared of anything, because remember, everything's bliss and emptiness. Why should I be scared of anything, right? Well, technically, for you to turn or have the deeming, so to speak, meditating emptiness to be a priority in your life, you'd have to give something up to walk towards that. So, you know, there has to be something that you're rejecting, you know, worldly things, to meditate on emptiness in the first place. Otherwise, you'd just be running around doing worldly things. So fear is a big motivation. What is that? Fear of suffering, fear of samsara. And in particular, it's a sense of an existential fear, right? Just like Heidegger would say, at the basis of all human reality is the death anxiety, right? And when you think about it, we're all middle-aged now, we're getting there. What are we looking forward to? What's coming? All we have to look forward to is death. So we're scared of that. It's like, oh my God, my life's almost over. So death, old age, and suffering. I'm scared of those things. That I'm going to be submitting myself to those things without my control. So that's the first motivation. And then, of course, faith is, Rinpoche sort of says another way of, you know, faith is another one of these trigger words nowadays. But faith, you could also translate it as being a belief, I guess, or a confidence in something to give you shelter or a power to protect you. You want protection. I feel safe. Like maybe in the United States, I feel safe because I have a gun on me or whatever. Like there's a sense that so you have faith in something, that something is going to protect you or give you refuge. And what is this? Of course, is the three jewels. I have to keep an eye on the time, as I realize already we're like almost over here. So what are the three jewels? When you're taking faith, of course, we know that this is in Buddhist Dharma and Sangha. So what are, how would we look at the three jewels as being the source of refuge? So Buddha, when we take refuge as a Buddhist, we have fear of samsara, fear of old age, suffering, and death. I'm looking for the shelter. I'm looking for the protection of three jewels. These are the ultimate sort of protections for things. So what is the Buddha? The Buddha is the real protection, in the sense that the Buddha, as an example, is someone who's reached the end of the path or woken up. They've actually arrived at total protection. They've arrived at total shelter. They've arrived at a space where they no longer have any fear. Why? Because those things we're afraid of don't apply to them anymore. They're beyond the cycle of birth, old age, suffering, and death. So they're not scared. It's like being scared of the boogie monster or something like that, like the boogeyman. I'm not scared of that because it doesn't exist, let's say, right? It's the same kind of thing. So this is as a protection, as a shining light, or as an example, or the instantiation, embodiment of the Buddhist path. The Buddha jewel is the real refuge. Like in this case, when you do LamRim, they always teach you that out of the three jewels, the one you're really taking refuge in is the Dharma jewel. In particular, your own inner wisdom, understanding emptiness. Whereas in the BuddhaNature teaching, Tathagata teachings of Uttaratantra, Mahayana Uttaratantra Shastra, or Clear Light of, what is it? Clear Ornament Liber, no, wait a minute, what's that called? Anyway, the three texts that Maitreya taught, I can't remember. I'm mixing up Gampopa's LamRim text with that. I can't remember. Anyway, too much jet lag. But basically, in the BuddhaNature teachings, the main jewel that you're taking refuge in is the Buddha jewel, you know, as an example, but also in your own Buddha nature. You see that your own Buddha nature, in other words, the emptiness of your own mind, the natural and developing Tathagata, that sort of, that your mind is empty and that you're on the path to realizing the emptiness of your mind is the real source of refuge. So Buddha as that example, showing you that you are Buddha and you are going to become Buddha, that's the thing you're taking refuge in. So it's the same kind of thing here. Dharma teachings here, the Dharma jewel being, how does the Buddha reach us? If Buddha is an example, what is the path that the Buddha is giving you as the source of refuge? Well, that is the whole Buddhist path. In particular, emptiness, of course, teaching emptiness. So it's interesting that I wrote here from my notes from Geshe Michaels that you're taking refuge in the truth. That's what your protection is. The truth that Buddha is, the truth that Buddha is embodying, the truth that Buddha is offering to you as a path. And that is a quote unquote cessation. So you can see it's the two Arya truths here. You know, you've got true sufferings, old age, birth, sickness, and death. True origins, which we're not talking about, is of course the karma for that, but true cessations and true paths here, in the sense that Buddha realizing emptiness, being ultimate truth, is the cessation of samsara as well as the path. We are emulating, we are using the Buddha as an example. We are following in the Buddha's footsteps to do the same thing, right? And we can do that because our mind is empty, so we're taking refuge in ourselves. So that's why in the end, we always hear Buddha says, you are your own refuge, you are your own example, you are your own path, right? It's an immanent thing. In other words, unlike some religions, Buddha isn't transcendent, something separate from us. It's an immanent system. The Buddha is within us, quite literally. And you see this with Mahamudra teachings, where you have what they call pointing out, where your teacher's pointing out the emptiness of your own mind. In the Dzogchen teachings, that they always have the Garib Dorje, which is sort of the first human teacher of Dzogchen in the first century. I can't remember if it's first century AD or BC, okay, but you know, about 500 years after Buddha taught. And you might see Garib Dorjes and those just yogis from Afghanistan, like Swat Valley, Pakistan, and he's just pointing. You might have seen that. It's the pointing mudra, just like, hey, I want you to get enlightened, right? Just like Uncle Sam. So that's the pointing mudra. And the same thing's when we're looking at refuge. you see that we're taking refuge in our own self. So that's what's interesting. So that's what Leonard Cohen always, what he said, I pray to who God prays to. He needs some kind of funny joke like that, right? Well, what do you, in other words, do Buddhists take refuge? Well, Buddhas are refuge. So they're taking refuge in themselves. But if we have Buddha nature, you're taking refuge in yourself. So I always like to say, when you're really looking at emptiness, I'm taking refuge in the fact that I can't take refuge in anything else but myself, right? Right? I'm taking refuge in the fact that there's nothing to take refuge in. There's no real protection in the world because everything's empty. But that's the ultimate protection. So it's almost like the famous quote, ever since I gave up hope, I felt a lot better, like ever since. But you see, it's interesting because I'm getting rid of any sort of appeal to something transcendent and external to myself, right? So it's the ultimate, ultimate getting your freedom back, I guess you could see, your freedom to be anything. Yeah, it's the ultimate self-empowerment, I guess you could say, that the fact that things are selfless, the selflessness empowerment of the self. Okay, anyway. So this is the real, I guess, the real refuge that we're talking about here. So in a lot of ways, I have your suffering, way out of suffering, two kinds of way out, path and cessation. I was just saying these are the four area truths. Technically, this leads back to what we've all been saying, that this path or cessation, emptiness are the three principal paths of renunciation, bodhicitta, and emptiness. And this is what we've just been talking about for the last number of weeks here. So this is the only thing that can help you. So a cessation, just to define it, is when something is permanently stopped permanently in you. So it's when you have a cessation of suffering or whatever, cessation, it will never come back. So most of the time our suffering is like a light switch. We just have it turned off, but because the imprints are still there, you can turn it on. So you're a good Buddhist, but you're not that good. And oh, I never get angry. And then what happens? Someone rear-ends you, jump out of the car and you're mad. So the light for your delusions, the switch is still there. When you have a cessation, it's like pulling all the wiring out from the switch. So you can flip the switch all you want, the light's never going to come on, right? So when we've seen emptiness, that has the same thing with our intellectually created delusions, is that those imprints will never be triggered. They're still there, but they'll never go on, right? So refuge, the more we do refuge, it's applying a cessation to our delusions. That's what makes it so powerful. Okay, just to finish off here. Yeah, well, this is excellent. This is something I wrote here. The day you realize your object of negation is something you have created, and being negative will only create more and more negativity and suffering, you will stop. So in other words, when you realize emptiness, what you'll see is the object of negation or gacha, in other words, the false object, which is inherent existence, or the fact that something is unrelated to anything else, completely self-subsistent, self-referential, not related to anything else. The moment you see that that's false because it's never been there, that's something your delusion has added to phenomena. The moment you see this, when you realize emptiness, you will basically stop being negative, because your negativity is based on that error or ignorance, and that negativity will only produce more suffering in your life. So you see how the cessation works as refuge? When I really take refuge in emptiness and meditate on emptiness, I see that all my problems are self-created based on the fact that I believe in inherent existence. So that ceases. Why would you cause problems for yourself? Like Geshe-pan goes this thing, why throw a brick into the future, right? Like if you kept getting shocked, getting electrocuted, and then you realize it's because you keep pressing this button to electrocute yourself. The moment you realize that, you're going to stop pressing the button. Well, you hope you're going to stop pressing, but I'd imagine most people would stop pressing that button. It's the same kind of thing. So this is, again, a deeper understanding of what refuge really is, refuge in that process. So finally, what is the Sangha? When I take refuge in the Sangha. So what it is, the real refuge jewel for Sangha, and I always tell this to people, is Arya Sangha. Who you take refuge in the Sangha technically are the people that have realized emptiness. So now how do you know who's realized emptiness or not? That's a good question. But technically, even when you're taking refuge in your lineage gurus and all the Buddhas, people, great yoginis in the past and so forth. But you could sort of say that people, we don't know, but let's say, great practitioners that you know of or whatever that have some approximation of emptiness in their mind, or cessations, in the sense that they're very wholesome, sincere, kind people that have some degree of cessation in mind. And they've stopped being bad. They've stopped being hurtful. They've stopped being unwholesome people. There's a degree of emptiness in their life. Those are the people you take refuge in. What you see, like I was president of the temple in Toronto and Vancouver and stuff. And when you have people come and want advice or want to complain about stuff, what's interesting is usually they don't complain about Buddhism. Like they're not like, oh, Buddhism's stupid. And usually they don't complain about the teacher. Who do they complain about is the Sangha, right? It's other people in the community. And that you're always talking people off the edge, right? I'm going to quit because that Matthew guy, every time I go to the temple, I just want to punch him in the face. He drives me nuts. He thinks he's so good. He's got such a big ego. Just makes me sick. He's been around forever, and look at the guy, right? And it's like, okay, well, and you have to teach. And I'm always like, saying that's like, in other words, they're like, how can the Sangha be a jewel? How can I take refuge in that jerk? But that's not who you're taking refuge in. Like, because, in the sense that why would you take refuge in a sentient being, someone who's messed up and has issues, right? Who you're taking refuge in is, again, the Arya Sangha, great yogis and yoginis as an example, monks and nuns and lamas and so forth, your lineage gurus. These are the people that are being your example, your inspiration to do better, not the people that have flaws just like you. You wouldn't take refuge in them because they're a worldly object, right? So that's, I think, important to know about refuge as well, like what it means to take refuge in the Sangha. So just quickly finishing, I just have here some notes that's kind of interesting. You can take refuge according to the 3 scopes of LamRim, of course, the 3, initial, intermediate, and great scope. Yeah. This is, I wonder if that's too much to talk about now. Maybe we'll talk about this next week a little bit more. Yeah, I don't want to go on too much, but I just want to say quickly, this will lead into next week. Refuge seems weird when you say it as a word. I take refuge. Like it's, like when you first become a Buddhist, it's like, that's weird. It's not like, I believe in what X, Y, and Z is. I'm taking refuge and taking refuge. So it seems like a foreign concept, but basically, if what it really means is putting your hope in something, right? You're putting your confidence in something. That's what refuge really means. I guess the point I wanted to say here, and Trungpa talks about this all the time, is that you're always taking refuge. You're always taking refuge every moment of the day. You're just taking refuge in worldly things, right? Like every time you check your phone to see if there's someone like the picture of your lunch that day or whatever, you've done something. Every time you distract yourself, you're taking refuge in something. You feel off, you feel sad, you feel anxious, you feel bad, you want to feel good. So you're finding shelter, you're running towards something that'll alleviate your suffering, right? So Blaise Pascal, the famous French philosopher in 1600s, said everything in human reality is diversion from your own nullity. Every moment you're trying to entertain yourself. That's a form of refuge. But you see, that's worldly refuge, and what you see is it never really works, or it works only for a little bit of time. We're always taking refuge. Every time it's raining, you run under the tree, you hold your umbrella up. You take refuge when you're sore, you want to take the bus home rather than walk home. You're bored, so you put the TV on. So what's interesting is that you're always taking refuge all the time, right? But you're taking refuge in temporary things that don't give you a true lasting refuge in terms of true happiness, which of course the 3 jewels would do. So that's important. And Trungpa Rinpoche has a great essay, I don't know which book it's in, where he talks that you take refuge because you are a refugee. You are a refugee in your life, right? You are an eternally displaced person in your life, right? I mean, literally, I mean, I don't want to downplay the fact that right now, you know, with the Ukraine and everyone is here, there's all sorts of people who are quote unquote real refugees, right? But when you look at it on an existential level, you're not that far from that at a given basis, where you're looking for happiness, you're suffering, you're lost, you're confused, you're looking for protection and shelter at each moment, and you're constantly, this is where addiction comes from. So basically, just like William Burroughs said that all desire is addiction, technically your desires and your need to feel satisfied, fulfilled, protected, at peace with yourself, safe, your need to feel safe at every moment is what's leading you to entertain yourself and divert you at each moment, which is leading you to take refuge at each moment of your life. But it's false refuge, or it's temporary refuge you're mistaking for ultimate refuge, right? So like Pascal said, from an infinite nullity or whole that you are can only be filled by an infinite object going into it, which is God, right? I'm not pushing a Christian message here, but in a lot of ways it's a similar thing. This constant need for refuge can only be alleviated or satisfied if you find something that is kind of like a permanent refuge. And again, that's the three jewels. That's emptiness of the Buddha jewel and the Dharma jewel. But again, emptiness is the lack of inherent existence of things. So again, when I'm taking refuge in the fact is I can't take refuge in anything, right? Isn't that funny? That's the paradoxical quality of this. So in other words, you have to be okay with being a refugee, right? One of the big translations of sentient being is transmigrator, or being on the move. Being on the move, right? We're always looking on the move, looking for happiness, going through the bardo. So that's what Martin Heidegger always said, that we're sort of projective beings, right? We're always projecting ourselves to the past or the future, always moving, always in the world, alongside things, in the middle of something, always on our way somewhere. There's a great thing in Being in Time where he talks about signs, and he says, what's the example of a sign, like a linguistic sign? And he says, turning light on a car, your turning indicator. When I see that, I know exactly what that means, but when I see that, it means I know this person's on their way, they're turning left, they're going shopping. And it's interesting. So he was saying that every linguistic sign we have shows us we're in the middle of doing something, a self project, which means we're on our move, we're moving somewhere, we're going somewhere. And what he says is we're moving away from death, we're running from death at each moment, right? Death anxiety, we're running from, at each moment, anything I'm doing, the big ultimate thing is I'm running away from my own death, which is basically running away the fact that I don't have a self nature. I'm empty, and that reminds me of my death, right? I mean, this is existentialism, but I'm just saying it's a similar thing with refuge here, which I think is good. So when Padmasambhava gives the teachings on the 6 bardos, he shows that basically everything is bardo, that you are an internally displaced refugee in your own life because you can't sit still with emptiness. You can't see that this quality of emptiness isn't a bad thing, right? The emptiness of your mind is a good thing you can sit with. That's Mahamudra. But right now, we're like this, right? So you see deeper, we're looking at refuge, these deeper qualities of what refuge really means when you're taking refuge as a Buddhist, right? Anyway, I'll stop there. I mean, keep going for another hour here, and we'll talk a little bit more about, I'll continue the rest of these notes for next week, and then go into the next class as well. But anyway, that's what it really means, when, like tying refuge to perfection of wisdom, tying refuge to emptiness. This is what makes you a real Buddhist, not just having a mala or running around wearing a chuba or having tonkas in your house. Anybody can do that. So anytime you're wanting to divert yourself or you're unhappy, think of that refuge. What am I taking refuge in, right? And you'll see, this is the perfect questions. Are you really taking refuge? And then you see how hard it is to take refuge in emptiness. It's actually really hard to take refuge, you know? Face the emptiness of my own mind or watch Netflix. I'll pick the option B, right? Of course. But anyway, So, but we're a work in progress. We're a work in progress, right? So I look at this way. Okay, so I've gone way over time here. I'm sorry, I'm getting carried away with all this teaching and stuff nowadays. So let's just take a moment to dedicate this. And if you have questions, I know we've gone over, write them down in your head. You can email me about it, or next week, bring it up right at the beginning here. We'll go over it maybe next week if you want a couple things from this class. So let's dedicate this again for really taking refuge for ourselves and for others, and also being a source of refuge for others is a good Buddhist, a good example, is bringing emptiness in our life and being peaceful and in the present moment. And again, we can think being refuge means having no fear, being absolutely fearless, like the lion of Dharma. Right? They always have the lion as being an example of Dharma. The lion's not scared of anybody. So once we realize emptiness, we're not scared of anything because everything's just our own mind. All the monsters are our own delusions, our own projections. And this is a way of being refuge for other people, giving fearlessness. People say, I like being around my Dharma friend because that person's fearless and I feel fearless. When I don't feel so stressed out or anxious, or if I'm just filled with anxiety and angst, I feel peaceful being with this other person. And it's because they're trying to live emptiness in their own life. So let's dedicate all this wonderful refuge, virtue, and merit with the blessings of all our gurus, who again, examples of refuge, and dedicate this for the enlightenment of all sentient beings. Okay, there we go. Ta-da. Let me turn this off here 1 sec.